He was the god of the sea, the ruler of every ocean, every river, every wave that has ever crashed against a shore. He commanded the waters that covered most of the earth, the depths that no mortal had ever fully explored, the storms that swallowed entire fleets without mercy. He held a trident that could split the ground open and trigger earthquakes that leveled cities in seconds. And he was furious, almost always. This is the story of Poseidon, the most volatile god on Olympus, the brother of Zeus who never quite accepted that he had come second, and the force of nature that shaped the ancient world in ways that are still felt today. To understand Poseidon, you have to start at the beginning. Like his siblings before him, Poseidon was swallowed by his father Cronus as an infant and spent years trapped in darkness before Zeus freed them all. That experience of being consumed, of being powerless, of sitting in the dark with no control over anything, never truly left any of them. But where Zeus channeled that rage into authority, and Hades channeled it into quiet, absolute order, Poseidon channeled it into something far less controlled. He channeled it into the sea itself. When the three brothers divided the world, Poseidon drew the ocean. On the surface, it seemed like a reasonable share. The sea covered most of the known world. It was vast and powerful and filled with mystery. But Poseidon had wanted the sky. He had wanted to be king. And the fact that Zeus, his younger brother, had claimed that throne instead was something Poseidon never fully made peace with. The tension between the two brothers ran through the entire history of Greek mythology like a fault line beneath the earth. Poseidon challenged Zeus's authority more than any other god. He plotted against him, questioned him, defied him openly in ways that no one else dared. There was even a moment when Poseidon joined a conspiracy with Hera and Athena to overthrow Zeus entirely, to chain the king of the gods and seize power for themselves. The plan was bold. While Zeus slept, the three gods bound him with unbreakable chains, stripping him of his lightning bolts and leaving him helpless on his own throne. For a brief moment, it seemed like it had worked. The king of the gods lay chained and powerless while the conspirators argued over who would rule in his place. But they had underestimated Zeus. The sea nymph Thetis brought the 100-handed giant Briareus to Olympus, who untied the chains faster than any of them could stop him. Zeus was free, and he was angrier than he had ever been. The conspiracy failed. Zeus was freed, and Poseidon, as punishment, was sent to serve a mortal king as a laborer, stripped of his divine power and forced to build the walls of Troy with his own hands. He worked alongside the god Apollo, both of them humiliated, both of them reduced to mortal servitude as punishment for defying the king of the gods. He did not forget that humiliation either. Poseidon was a god of contradictions. On one hand, he was the protector of sailors, the god that seafarers prayed to before every voyage, the divine force that could calm a storm as easily as he could create one. Ancient Greeks understood that the sea gave them everything: trade, food, connection to the wider world. And they understood that all of it depended on Poseidon's mood. Temples were built in his honor along every coastline. Sacrifices were made before ships departed. His favor was considered essential for survival. On the other hand, he was the Earthshaker, the god of earthquakes. When Poseidon struck the ground with his trident, the earth cracked open, mountains shook, and cities fell. The ancient Greeks lived in one of the most seismically active regions in the world, and every tremor, every catastrophic earthquake that destroyed a settlement was understood as Poseidon expressing his displeasure. He was not a god you wanted to anger, and he was, unfortunately, extremely easy to anger. His temper was legendary even by the standards of the Olympians, who were not exactly known for their patience. Poseidon held grudges for decades. He pursued vengeance across generations. When the Trojans refused to pay him properly for building their walls, he sent a sea monster to terrorize their coastline. When a sailor boasted about his own skill at sea without thanking Poseidon for safe passage, entire crews disappeared beneath the waves without explanation. And then there was Odysseus. After the fall of Troy, the great hero Odysseus was sailing home to Ithaca. It should have taken weeks. It took 10 years. Because Odysseus had made the single worst mistake any mortal could make. He had blinded Polyphemus, the Cyclops, without knowing that the monster was Poseidon's own son. When Polyphemus cried out in agony, calling to his father across the waves, Poseidon heard him. And from that moment on, Odysseus was a marked man. Every time his ships came close to home, Poseidon sent storms to drive them off course. Every time Odysseus found an ally or a safe harbor, Poseidon found a way to take it from him. He wrecked his ships, killed his crew one by one, and pushed him to the very edges of the known world. Even when Zeus himself ordered that Odysseus be allowed to return home, Poseidon found one last way to punish him, destroying his raft and nearly drowning him within sight of land. 10 years of suffering for one moment of survival. That was Poseidon's justice. And then there was Athens. The story of how Athens got its name is one of the most revealing stories about Poseidon's character. The city needed a patron god, a divine protector who would watch over it in exchange for the people's worship. Both Poseidon and Athena wanted the role, so a competition was arranged. Each god would give the city a gift, and the people would choose which gift they preferred. Poseidon went first. He struck the ground with his trident on the Acropolis, and from the rock sprang a saltwater spring. It was dramatic. It was powerful. It demonstrated in the most visceral way possible the force he commanded. But a saltwater spring in the middle of a city was not particularly useful. The people could not drink from it. They could not water their crops with it. Athena gave an olive tree. The olive tree gave food, oil, wood, and trade. It was practical. It was nourishing. It would sustain a civilization for centuries. The people chose Athena. The city was named Athens, and Poseidon, humiliated and furious, flooded the entire surrounding region in revenge. He did not take losing well, but there was another side to Poseidon that the ancient world understood and respected. He was the creator of horses. In some versions of the myth, he created the horse by striking the ground with his trident, and from the earth emerged the most magnificent animal humanity had ever seen. The horse transformed warfare, agriculture, travel, and civilization itself. The gift of the horse was arguably more important to the ancient world than the olive tree, and it came from Poseidon. He was also the father of some of the most extraordinary figures in mythology. Theseus, the great hero of Athens who slew the Minotaur, was his son. The Cyclops Polyphemus was his son. Triton, the messenger of the sea, was his son. Even the winged horse Pegasus carried Poseidon's divine lineage. He was everywhere in the ancient world. In every wave that crashed, in every earthquake that shook the ground, in every horse that galloped across the plains, he was unpredictable, volatile, generous in his good moods and catastrophic in his bad ones. The ancient Greeks understood something important about the sea that modern people sometimes forget. The ocean is not neutral. It is vast and deep and largely unknowable, full of creatures and currents and forces that operate entirely outside human control. It gives and it takes without explanation. It is beautiful, and it is terrifying in equal measure. Poseidon was all of that. He was not the sea as a resource or a route from one place to another. He was the sea as a living, breathing, feeling force with its own desires and its own rages and its own unpredictable moments of terrible generosity. The Greeks feared him because they needed him. They worshipped him because they had no choice. And they told stories about his anger and his pride and his jealousy because those stories explained something true about the world, that the most powerful forces in nature are not rational, are not fair, and do not care about human plans. Poseidon ruled the sea for eternity, second among the three brothers, never fully at peace with that position, carrying the weight of every humiliation and every slight in the cold, dark water beneath the waves. And when he was angry, and he was so often angry, the earth itself shook. The sea is not your friend. It never was. It belonged to Poseidon, and Poseidon answered to no one, not really. Not even Zeus could fully control what happened when the god of the ocean decided that the world had wronged him one too many times. The waves still carry that anger. Every storm that builds over open water, every tremor that runs through the ground, every ship that disappears without explanation into depths. No one has ever fully mapped. Poseidon is still there, still watching, still waiting. And he is still, after all this time, furious.